a hotel that's been mentioned in movies, attended by even royalty, and was opened in 1888 as the single largest resort hotel in the world of the time, was the Hotel del Coronado, also known as the Del and Hotel Del. It resides in the city of Coronado, which is just across from San Diego Bay, from San Diego in California. It's one of the very few surviving buildings of its time which still works, is in operation, and has people staying at it. It's a California historical landmark as of 1970 and a national one as of 1977. It is the second largest wooden structure in the United States, the other being in Oregon. It's famous for having good reviews, was once listed as in the USA Today as one of the top 10 resorts in the world, but they like to advertise something else at the front desk. You see, there was one resident all the way back in 1892 who checked in under a fake name and never checked out. In November of 1892, a pretty young woman in her mid-20s checked into the Del under the name Lottie A. Bernard from Detroit. She was writing a few other weird things on the guest book, writing the word Coronado, the name Lillian Russell, and I don't know any such man. There are no responses on the pages and no sign that she was responding to anyone at all or writing a note for herself. She claimed that she was waiting for her brother, a doctor. She claimed he was coming to join her as she had several ailments. Sometimes it was her heart, her body with chronic pain, but what the housekeeper and the rest of the staff did know is she tended to mention a lot of her issues with her illnesses. Now, she stayed there for several days and was upset when she asked over and over if her brother had arrived. However, a few days in, she ran a bath and she asked for hot water. The housekeeper, who would run all baths at this time, noticed that the woman was very jittery and seemed off. She said it wasn't a good idea, but the woman insisted. Now, taking a bath alone was normal enough, but taking a bath in a large bathtub alone in a hotel where they often have bathhouses is not normal. However, she did call for a head rub later on from one of the employees, a common thing, and when they came up, she had wet roots of her hair, which means that her head had to have been under, a rare thing unless you're trying to drown yourself, as it didn't wash hair well, and she was jittery and nervous again. Now, this was just the first sign, but nobody picked up on all of them in time. A few days after that, she was found outside the stairs outside her room after a storm, dead, with a hole in her head and an American Bulldog revolver next to her right hand. Any conflicting evidence against a suicide was washed away by a storm the night she died. This would seem awful enough, thinking about the circumstance, and mentioning that there was a suicide within the hotel. However, it gets a bit weirder once they figured out that this woman's name wasn't Lottie A. Bernard at all. Her name was Kate Morgan. Kate Morgan was born in 1864. From all accounts, she seems to have had a normal childhood, though I couldn't find any records of a brother, as she mentioned. This is perfectly normal, as they may have been lost, but it does lead to suspicion as we continue. In her late teens, she married a man named Thomas Edwin Morgan, and in 1886, they had a son named Thomas Jr. Unfortunately, their son, like many children of the time, lived only 2 days. Now, many would suffer from this, and apparently their marriage wasn't good after this tragedy. However, not many would run off with their husband's stepbrother. She ran off with a man with the last name of Allen, who was her husband's stepmother's son. They were together for what's estimated to be a year or so, but when she was seen before checking into the dell, there's no sign that they were still together. Now, this adds a lot of mystery to the story, but it gets even stranger post-death. Now, I'm going to have to bring the modern world into it for just a second. When they looked in her purse, one of the first things they noticed was they found a little bit over $20 her time in cash. According to an inflation calculator, she had what was equivalent to over $500 in cash at her purse when she died. And within that purse next to it was a telegram for a man addressed as Mr. Allen, which claimed that this man would give her $50 upon seeing her in person in cash, over $1,000 today. Many have speculated if there even was a suicide. Now, unlike modern forensics, they had no way of DNA testing if someone else was under her skin, if she might have fought back, if someone else's fingerprints, though they would have been washed away by the rain, would have been on the gun, as well as the fact that she had soaked up water into her skin from the storm, so it was unable to be analyzed if she had anyone else's blood on her, any dirt, any real signs of struggle, as she also had been tossed around a bit with the sand in the storm. But due to the positioning, due to where the gun was in her hand, due to where the bullet was in her head, it was more likely from the forensics finding even today that it was suicide. However, with the money in her wallet, which was not stolen, with the $50 that was supposed to be given to her, it's open to interpretation of why she might have been there. She didn't even have to pay her hotel bill, though she had ample means, because she wasn't there a full week. She was there just under 6 days, I believe. The housekeeper herself, in a newspaper article of the time, even mentioned that she was kind of expecting this. The woman was acting strange in the first place. However, when there's a death in your hotel, you have to capitalize on it, apparently. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. However, the Hotel del Coronado has plenty of merits, but they did use this. They have books that are in the gift shop about Kate Morgan, and they talk about how her ghost is apparently by the exterior staircase, sometimes the room she stayed in, sometimes just hanging around. She's not known for being violent or knocking down things or throwing knives or sucking children into TVs, but she is known for being calm, for being there. The book they call Beautiful Stranger, The Ghost of Kate Morgan in the Hotel del Coronado, says that Kate is a very harmless ghost. She generally limits her activity to fleeting experience and inexplicable antics. Now, there are many other haunted places that people talk about at length. The Winchester House, the Hotel Cecil. But the thing about the Hotel del Coronado is how famous it is and how it had this happen. Now, similarly, we see stories like the woman who died in the water tank in the Hotel Cecil, and we see these stories which have so much mystery, but it really isn't a modern phenomena after seeing Kate Morgan. Now, Kate Morgan was known for being educated. She was beautiful. She obviously had mental issues, but she had ample means to even start a life anew, as was obvious. But she went with well over enough money to make a living, and she killed herself in a nice hotel on the beach. It's unknown if she left a note. It wasn't found if she did. Her husband was not asked about the matter in many of the articles published, and nobody really knows why she was there at all. But Kate Morgan does represent a lot of the modern ghost story. Knowing someone died in a house often makes us uneasy. We don't like to buy houses knowing that people did something in them. It gives us a bad feeling. Now, whether that's our own issues with mortality or just something that gives us the heebie-jeebies is up to philosophers and psychologists. But what I do know is knowing someone died somewhere isn't usually a large draw unless something comes with it. Now, take the Winchester house, for example. If you phrased it the wrong way, it could just seem like an interesting piece of architecture with stupid background. A woman believes she heard voices after her husband's death that compelled her to build a house. Okay, that sounds like schizophrenia, but it's how they tell the story. The heir of the Winchester fortune, after her husband and daughter's death, found that ghosts were telling her to build a house or they would haunt and kill her with a fever too. And so she began. It brings people in. And so the Hotel del Coronado did what any other hotel could and should do with this kind of situation. They made it into something interesting. They talk about how Kate Morgan's ghost is still there. They talk about how she's a friendly ghost. They talk about, in an entire book that you can buy, how other guests have experienced her. Now, as I mentioned before, the Hotel del Coronado definitely had ample enough history and means that it would probably still be succeeding without the ghost story. It's known for being fantastically serviced and has held a bunch of very important guests. But it reflects on us as a society, how we reflect so much on this death of one woman that nobody knew. We know this. She lied about her name checking in. Why, if she planned on killing herself, did she lie about her name? And was she trying to kill herself in the bathtub? And why did she write Lillian Russell? And why did she write I don't know any such man? And why did she keep saying she was waiting for her brother every day and there was no sign, no letter? Big question with Kate Morgan is why. We ask this a lot about deaths. Now, my podcast is called Giggles from the Graveyard. This is kind of a somber episode because it is around suicide. So I'll tell you a joke. What do you call a hotel or building that capitalizes off the death of its inhabitants? An American one! Oh, sorry. I'm getting new information. Oh, I'm sorry. What do you call a hotel that capitalizes on the death of its inhabitants or guests? One that makes money. It's really sad, guys. But we do know that there really was a woman named Kate Morgan. She really did exist. And she really did die at the Hotel del Coronado. There's real history there. Now, just because Kate Morgan died on November 29th of 1892, do I 100% believe that her ghost is there? No, I have not been to the Hotel del Coronado. Is it possible? Anything's possible, according to Audrey Hepburn. But why would Kate Morgan be haunting a place she stayed for less than 7 days? Giggles in the Graveyard is produced, written, and edited by myself, Sabrina Jensen. All the music is royalty-free and links are in the description, as well as all my sources. This episode was about the Hotel del Coronado, which is a real place in Coronado, California, and has held many people. If you're interested, I suggest Googling it. It's a beautiful hotel. Kate Morgan was also a real person, as is found by her records, which I looked up in Ancestry and Wikipedia. Thank you for listening. If you want to listen further, I hate to inform you, only the original episodes are ever going to be available because I'm lazy. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a fantastic day.